Bismillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulullah, amma ba'd. Today we look into the hadith of Anas radiallahu anhu, which talks about some of the issues connected to the sacrifice. The Shaykh, he brings this hadith to talk about some of the details of the sacrifice and how it should be and what is the best manner of choosing a sacrifice. So we will look into this today. And the hadith is, أن أنس رضي الله تعالى عنه ضحى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بكبشين أملحين أقرنين ذبحهما بيده وسمى وكبر ووضع رجله على سفاحهما أخرجه البخاري والمسلم. Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sacrificed two white or mostly white horned rams. He slaughtered them with his own hands. He mentioned Allah's name and said Allahu Akbar and put his foot on their sides. This is reported by Bukhari and Muslim. So this hadith is evidence for several issues related to sacrificing. And the Shaykh, he summarizes them in a couple of points over here. And he begins with the first point, which says the sacrificing is legislated for the living because the Prophet ﷺ and his companions used to sacrifice for themselves and their families. As for specifying that for the dead and not the living, as some people do, then there is no foundation for that unless it is a bequest, in which case it should be carried out. This issue we saw in detail in the previous session. And it talks about the sacrifice from the living, and in a case where in exceptions where it can be sacrificed for the deceased, but generally you do not sacrifice on behalf of the deceased. The second point which the Shaykh brings is that the male animal is better than the female animal. So when you choose, it is better for you to choose the male animal than the female animal because the meat is better, as the Shaykh is saying. It is nevertheless permissible to sacrifice the female according to consensus. The third point that he brings is it is preferable to sacrifice the animal that has horns, and it is better than the animal without horns due to what the horned animal has of strength in its body and abundant meat. It is nevertheless unanimously permissible to sacrifice the hornless animal. So basically, animal which is a male, animal which is having horns is preferable. The fourth point which the Shaykh brings is it is legislated to choose the sacrificial animal with the best look and color. To pick a fat animal is good, and all white animal or one whose white is more than the black or any other color is better. This is exalting the symbols of Allah. So the reason you choose the best animal is because you want to exalt the symbols of Allah. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, ذَلِكَ وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ, which means thus it is, and whoever honors the symbols of Allah, then it is truly from the piety of the hearts. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in another ayah of Surah Al-Hajj, وَالْبُدْنَ جَعَلْنَاهَا لَكُمْ مِنْ شَعَائِرِ اللَّهِ لَكُمْ فِيهَا خَيْرٌ, which means, and the sacrificial animals, we have made them as symbols of Allah for you. If for you, therein is good. So enhancing the greatness of the sacrificial animals is exalting the symbols of Allah. So when you choose a good animal to sacrifice because you want to exalt the symbols of Allah. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he said that means al-istismanu wal-istihsanu wal-isti'azam, which is choosing the fat, the healthy and the magnificent ones. This is reported in Tafsir Ibn Kathir and Fath al-Bari. The fifth point which the Shaykh brings is that it is recommended for a person to slaughter his animal or his sacrifice himself if he is proficient in slaughtering, even if the one slaughtering is a woman. This is because slaughtering is a way to get closer to Allah. So by doing this act of slaughtering, you are coming closer to Allah. So it is preferable to do it with your own hands. That is if you know how to slaughter. if you do not know how to slaughter, then it is better to give it to someone who is proficient in this. And the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says in this hadith that ذَبَحَهُمَا بِيَدِهِ. This is the evidence for slaughtering with their own hands. He slaughtered them with his own hand, emphasizing this point because slaughtering is only done with the hand. Imam al-Bukhari, he said, rahimahullah, أمر أبو موسى بناته أن يضحين بأيديهن. So Abu Musa ordered his daughters to sacrifice with their own hands. If a person is not proficient, then he deputizes a Muslim who is knowledgeable of the conditions of slaughtering and attends the slaughtering. So he deputizes someone and he is also there attending the slaughtering. This is because the Prophet ﷺ, he deputized Ali radiallahu anhu to slaughter his remaining sacrificial animals during the farewell pilgrimage. Then the sixth point that the Shaykh wants to emphasize is, whoever wants to sacrifice a number of animals, more than one animal, it is better to slaughter them on the day of Eid, while separating them from the day of sacrifice is permissible. The days of sacrifice, the remaining days of sacrifice. So why does he do that? Because in that is a benefit for the poor. Slaughtering continues until the end of 13th day, according to the most predominant of the two statements of the people of knowledge. So if he spreads his sacrifice, he will benefit more poor. This is the benefit of spreading the sacrifice on the remaining days. Then the seventh point the Shaykh says is, it is legislated to mention Allah's name and magnify Him when slaughtering the sacrifice. He says, Bismillahi Wallahu Akbar. As for mentioning His name, this is wajib, this is obligatory. Whereas magnifying Him, this is recommended. It's mustahab. It is not the sunnah to say anything more, as nothing has come concerning that except to supplicate for acceptance, since it is established that the Prophet ﷺ, he did so. So there is nothing extra that you add. You just say Bismillahi Wallahu Akbar, and you do not add anything which is not from the Sunnah. So the Prophet ﷺ, he made the dua for his sacrifice to be accepted, and that can be done. Sending salah upon the Prophet ﷺ is not legislated at this time, because it is not appropriate in this situation, as some people do. Mentioning Allah's name should be done at the time of slaughtering. Now the Shaykh comes to the issue, when do we say the name of Allah, and when do we need to repeat it, and when it is permissible if there is a small delay. So the Shaykh says that mentioning Allah's name should be done at the time of slaughtering. If a long pause takes place between mentioning His name and slaughtering, one should mention His name again, unless the pause was to prepare the animal and to take hold of the knife. So if there is a long pause, you say the name of Allah and you want to slaughter, but you get busy in something else, and then you come back and it's a long pause, then it is better that you say the name of Allah again and then start the sacrifice. But if it is to prepare the animal, to take the knife or something, then this gap is okay. What is valid is that mentioning Allah's name be upon what is intended to slaughter. So if a person mentions Allah's name on a sheep, then left the sheep and slaughtered another animal, he must mention Allah's name again on the new animal. So if he is slaughtering the first animal and he says Allah's name, and he tries to attend to the next animal, then he has to say the name again for the new animal. As for changing the instrument of slaughter, then this has no impact on mentioning Allah's name. So if you change the knife, it's not sharp, you don't have to say Bismillah Allahu Akbar again. With this, the Shaykh completes this session and this lesson, and he says the dua, which is towards the end of the durus, which is Allahumma taqabbal ta'atana wa tajawaz taqsirana, Allahumma arzuqna ilman nafi'a wa amalan mutaqabbala ورزقا طيبا اللهم أجب دعاءنا وحقق رجاءنا واغفر اللهم لنا ولوالدينا ولجميع المسلمين. O Allah, accept our acts of obedience and overlook our shortcomings. O Allah, grant us beneficial knowledge, acceptable actions and good lawful provisions. O Allah, answer our supplications, fulfill our hopes and forgive us. O Allah, our parents and all the Muslims. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.